Welcome to the show, everybody. I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel. On YouTube, we are Film Talk Radio. I'm joined by the filmmaker, maestro, Godfrey Reggio. Godfrey, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for being here.
You've been bold throughout your work, in your career, a specific type of boldness. This is something the philosopher Goethe said. Whatever you can do or think you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius magic and power in it.
Yes. So the corollary for that is I'd rather be sorry than safe. Better safe than sorry. I'd rather be sorry than safe. And that means leap and your net will appear. That means trust, that you're trusting yourself. And sometimes your mistakes are your biggest teachers, your biggest successes. So I feel lucky. And I recommend everyone think about that. Better to be sorry than safe.
And do you think taking those chances can have greater rewards than being safe? What are some of the good things that can come from taking that leap of faith?
Well, that's a very good question. What I mean by rather be sorry than safe, if you want to be safe, then you do what you know will be safe. In other words, you won't take too big of a risk. You don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to mumble. Uh, for those that are willing to do that, then Goethe's quote is very good because he talks about the boldness of doing something really you haven't done before. So to do something that's been done before by other people or done before by yourself, worse, is not very interesting nor challenging. Now, that's not to say I do believe that all things under the sun, as they say, have been done before. So everyone's a plagiarist in that sense, from the greatest minds to the little minds of mine. So we all plagiarize everything, but it's in the acacia. It's part of who we are if we pay attention. And we all pay attention to different things. Have you noticed that when you get a car or buy a suit or get something that you like special, you notice everybody else that has one like that? So it's who we are. It's what we take interest in.
Well, you mentioned language, and Wittgenstein, the philosopher, said, we see the world through language. The limit of our language is the limit of our world.
Well, that's profound. My response to that, when our language no longer describes the world in which we live, which I think is our condition now, then there has to be a reboost. Let me tell you what a reboost is. If you've ever had to crank a car to start it, which I had to do as a kid, you have to keep cranking. You got, boom, you're reboosting the motor, boom, until it goes pop, pop, pop. So we reboost not by word. I don't tell the engine to kick itself open. The very word reboost is reboost by object, by deed, by act, not by word. And our first, as it were, language happens to be our lingua franca in body language, facial expression, eye behavior, gesture. So this is the moment we're in. That's why I use no languages in my films, because they would only distract you from the truth that's hidden in the film. So Philip Glass is the narrator because with music, unlike word, music goes directly to the listener of the soul. So in that sense, it it allows you to hear. That music allows you to see as well as hear the world we live in. So when Wittgenstein says, the limit of my world is the limit of my language, today we have no view of the world other than what advertising or television, where we have what, 2.5 seconds of attention, as high as 8.5 seconds. Um, so we're in the moment for a reboost, and we should mind what Wittgenstein said.
You know, we've spoken a lot about Rene Descartes in the previous shows we've done about whether you're here. Of course, I think, therefore I am is his famous line. And Wittgenstein refuted that by saying, here's how I can tell that reality is you. You know, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, this is how I can tell reality is real. Here is a hand, and here is another hand.
Huh? Huh?
So,
Well,
yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
on what? What
Well, be,
rephrase the question?
well, I think Rene Descartes and his "I think, therefore I am" that seems to be your philosophy, but
No, it's
Wittgenstein.
not mine. I take strong exception. Please, I'm just a person, but I have my own thought with Rene Descartes. First of all, he separated the phenomena from the noumena. He divorced the reality from the meaning of reality. That's one thing. Okay. I believe the following: I speak, therefore I am. I speak, therefore I am. Now, speech is considered by Descartes as the handmaiden of, of thought. Uh, it's just the opposite. The handmaiden of thought is thought. Speech is the mother of thought. What we say unrehearsed is who we are. What we say reveals what our mind is. I do a thing with my crew. What do we call it? Um, it's like sympathetic magic. Everybody gets to say what they want to say, not just what I wish to hear. That would be like putting my idea ahead of what they speak. So we have what's called a dialogic conversation. I can hear my own thoughts for the first time in talking to you or the audience that we may have, or to the people I make film with. I can hear my own thought for the first time. Let me back that up with Joseph Brodsky, the Nobel laureate put in the Gulag. W.H. brought him here. Um, he for him, Marx wrote the Catechism. Of course, he grew up in the Soviet Union. And Marx asked the question, is it the content of your mind that determines your behavior, or is it your behavior that determines the content of your mind? And of course, for 9 out of 8 of us, we think it's our mind, but Marx says not so. It's the behavior we do that determines the content of our mind. It's what we call routinized behavior. Stuff we don't pay attention to anymore is the most important of all the behaviors. That which is closest is that which is least paid attention to, least seen, least heard, because it's normal.
Now, this is a Chinese proverb: do something, even if it's the wrong thing, better than indecision. When failure is success, failures are our biggest teachers.
A very good quote from the Chinese. What they're saying is, jump into the water. Don't stand there and put your foot into it. Even if it's the wrong thing, it's better to do something than to do nothing. To do nothing means you're in a state of paralysis. And if you do something, it might work. And if it's a failure, it could be your greatest success. because failures become our teachers. Anybody making film knows you have to embrace failure, not shun it. You have to embrace it because it teaches you what the next step is. So begin, and the work shall show us how.
Godfrey, let's take a short break for these messages. Everybody, we're talking with filmmaker Godfrey Reggio. His latest feature film is Once Within a Time. Stay tuned. Everybody, we're back. We're talking with filmmaker Godfrey Reggio. Godfrey, you mentioned in the last segment before we took a break that you remember cranking the car to start up the motor. What other technological advances have you seen during your lifetime?
Well, I still use some of the nomenclature of things that we've gone way past. So I have an ice box. Now it's actually a refrigerator, but I never knew it as a refrigerator. It was an ice box. So those are things. In terms of the world we live in, the changes are so enormous that we now see them as real. For example, not for example, the example is AI, more powerful than the hydrogen bomb. Anything that we know about, only 6 months ago, they showed us a kid can buy the app now, an AI with the Pope and his big white coat. That means that the government has had this for over 50 years, been playing with it, dealing with it, putting it in place. Now, everything around us is surrounded by AI. Even the stuff we see, the ads we hear, the things we want, the things that we don't want. All of those things are predicated now without us even realizing it. And of course, they tell us we can control it. Well, I think that's a joke. Uh, what is it? Who is the guy? Andy Grove says about technology, if it can be done, it will be done. And he gave us the little link that has to be used in all computers. And so the mind has not seen, nor has it entered into the mind of people, the madness that AI is presenting us with, and we'll be the last to know. We could be AI. I could be AI right now. Make a nice candidate.
Somebody pinch me. Uh, Godfrey, in the film Once Within a Time, we get to see some of the dangers of a technological world, of what the future of a technocracy could look like. What are some of the scariest parts about that, and how does AI play into it?
Wait, rephrase that question, would you please?
Sure. So in Once Within a Time, we get to see the dangers of a future of technology, where the dark places technology can take us to. How is AI involved in that?
Okay, let me say that in the film Once Within a Time, except for half of one shot, we didn't use AI. We did it with human intelligence, not artificial intelligence. Now that I'm very proud of that and proud of my team to do that, because it means making each image itself as a unique image with 33 layers of visual and music layered into it. I found out from the Archbishop of Santa Fe to children that came here to see the film over the last 16 months, and then stuff I get on the net, that everyone who sees the film feels implicated in the madness that we're involved in now. And of course, we are. The madness we have now is the result of our blind pursuit of happiness. We're sun gazers all, and the sun is the new gizmo. As I told you, maybe, but I'll repeat, our attention span is 2.5 seconds, all the way as long as 8.5 seconds. So in once within a time, I made the shots 9 seconds, 412 of them, because because people don't have an attention span. That's why there's so many images in that film.
Now, do you think our language no longer describes the world we live in?
Completely, yes. My whole work is predicated. I mean, I've never made a film with a language, though all my films begin with the beauty of the word. I go to my board, I prepare a few notes, and usually they're aphoristic statements, things that, the vivid unknown, or a dawn without a day, or all these beautiful. W.H. Auden has a book of collections of his most favorite aphoristic thoughts. I recommend it. That's who we are. Heraclitus and Homer were in the pre-Socratic period before Plato and Aristotle, etc. And Heraclitus says you may never walk in the same river twice because it's always in flux. Now, your audience won't know this, maybe some of the older people will, but in 1968, when Guy Debord, the situationist, joined with the workers and basically led to the outing of de Gaulle, whose whose ideology did they follow? The Fluxus, who were Romanians, who came there with those ideas, and Guy Debord incorporated those in his beautiful little book, The Society of the Spectacle, where he says, we live in a world where there's one geologic form piled upon another. He's talking about buildings and automobiles, etc. So these are, one has to bring a sense of humor to this also. Um, Humor being who we are. Baudelaire says, genius is childhood recovered. Um, we have to bring humor into this because this is who we are. He also says that humor is the stigmata of original sin. So without humor, uh, like hope against hope, that's what we need to do. That could be considered humorous or a catch-22, as I see on your little shelf behind me. But it's those things that'll make a difference.
So, Thomas A. Kempis asked, or he posed the question, would you rather know love or feel it?
Well, I mean, come on. Do you want someone to tell you, I love you, I love you, I love you, but you never feel it? You can't feel yourself. You can't feel yourself. That's why masturbatory activity goes nowhere other than in a second, and it's gone. When you would embrace your lover, that's what a campus is saying. Would you rather know or would you rather feel? We are feeling creatures. Rhythm is the basis of our feeling nature. We're in a dance of life. Boom, boom. You'll notice people who are nervous about their teeth always covering them, or if there's music, you see somebody shaking to it, or blah, blah, blah. That's who we are.
Now, is that a series of vibrations? What frequency are humans vibrating?
Well, Tesla, not the automobile, thank God, but Tesla, the what, Romania, Hungarian,
Nikolai Tesla.
Nikolai Tesla says there everything is in rhythm, everything works, and his numbers are 3, 6, and 9. Those are the numbers of the universe, he says. Now, that the triangle is everywhere. He also says the quintessential visual of the world is crystal pink. Pink is our color, where we come from.
Yeah, pink is the color of the universe.
That's right. and the triangle is its form.
Explain that. Why is the triangle its form? Is that part of the 369?
Yes, yes, it is. And I make all my films in that triactic form. I start with 3 gross sections, and then I can divide them into 6, and I can divide those 6 into 9, giving me a complete form for the film. Independent of what the film's about, all meaning is in the form, says Octavio Paz. Read him. Without the form, you have no meaning. And there's more in the form than you think you put into it, because the form gives life to what you're trying to say or present. And it has more in it than you think you put into it. So it's, in that sense, autodidactic. Everyone put a frame around something, everyone sees a different picture.
Godfrey, let's go to a break for these messages and we'll come right back. Everybody, this is filmmaker Godfrey Reggio. His latest is called Once Within a Time. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. We're speaking with filmmaker Maestro Godfrey Reggio. Godfrey, we've gotten into some of the mysteries of the universe, some deep philosophical questions. And I think this is a good one for you that I've been meaning to ask. And we've talked we talked extensively about children, but this question is: would the world be more peaceful if kids were in charge?
Ah, there was a movie made about that. I can't remember the name. Let's be clear who kids are, okay? No, a 9-year-old is not going to lead the world, but a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, an 81-year-old, or whatever the age is, there's a child within us all. It's all about power, so it's hard to find children that want to play with power. I, being a follower of the Nazarene, not of the church, blessed, but of the Nazarene, he came to do one thing: to reject power and produce love. If there's any meaning in life, there has to be love that feels, that ties to a compass everyone else that has something to say. Love is the light of the world. And those that don't have it are very sad.
Now, Godfrey, do you think morality is objective?
Everything, I think, is subjective. Everything is subjective. I can only have my own thought. I can be told what's moral, but more than moral, we're in the moment, and I'll get to moral, it's important, very, but we're in the middle of a digital tidal wave, an ontological earthquake. Everything is changing. Morality plays second fiddle to that, because morality comes off of that. So if we want to be moral, we have to realize that we're being hit by a tidal wave, worse than the hurricane that's out in California, Florida, Texas right now, and an ontological earthquake. All of our ideas have evaporated and disappeared into nothingness. Now, that can be a good state, nothingness, but we have to reboost ourselves to get there.
I guess this next question is about fate or destiny. And do we really have free will? I know on the show we've talked about everything being predetermined in the metaphysical sense, but do we have free will along the way?
It's a very good question. As a young brother, we studied the conundrum. It's a conundrum called scientia media. And the example they use, the metaphor, is that if God could see a person coming around a mountain, but he couldn't see what was around the mountain, and there was another vehicle going to crash him, would God stop it? And of course, the answer is no. First of all, we don't know who God is. His name in the Bible is Dog, D-O-G, God spelled backwards. Um, we are free. We are free to do that which is not good and that which is good. Those that are capable of good are also capable of evil. So we have to, and we have committed the biggest evil in an unconscious way. The, the madness we see around us, the world falling apart, is because of the pursuit of our technological happiness. We'll pay anything for it. California, our most ecological state in our union, produces more pollution than all of Africa put together. And that's the truth. So it's all relative to what you're expecting. That's why I try consciously with Philip, consciously to direct everything to the reptilian brain or the right brain, the brain of childhood, the brain of visions, the brain of, of ridiculousness, the brain of praying, of playing, and the highest form of prayer is to create. That's when we're most like the creator. So children have the highest, and the child within the adult has the highest form of prayer is creation. To make something, to offer it to other people freely, freely. Don't charge them.
I think that leads to the Polish proverb, begin and the work shall show us how. What does that statement mean to you?
Well, it's like the man at Leaping Rock, and I think in Iowa, there's a great shot of a guy jumping between two structures. Uh, but what was your question?
So it's the Polish proverb,
Oh, really, the Polish proverb. Got it. Right. So what that says is that begin and the work shall show you how. Now that's the motto I use for myself. I go up to the board, I have a few thoughts collected, I put it down on the board, and then it starts to write through. It's like automatic writing, if you know what that is. It becomes like automatic writing, and I go through multiple generations of that, filling my boards up. I have hundreds of DVDs of the boards until I get to a point where I can divide it into a clarity.
and these are your whiteboards you're speaking of.
Whiteboards and notes and papers and all of that good stuff.
Tell me about the ego, Godfrey.
Um, I think the ego is most important. People who have no ego usually are like little, a little shaky, a little undetermined. Ego gives strength. It gives energy. It gives confidence. What one must avoid is the vanity of ego, where you can't hear other people's criticism. You've heard me say this before, but I work with a man whose ego is the size of the Empire State Building, mine the size of some other, maybe the Chrysler Building, but we don't have vanity. We tell each other what we really feel, not what the other person wishes to hear. So in my case, in every film, I've had to reject certain tunes of Philip, not because they weren't good, but because they didn't fit into the story to behold that I wanted to do. And Philip working with me knows that I'm everything from a mother to an assassin. I have to get my own way at every cost.
No, I think that unflinching dedication to the work is really a signature move for you.
It is,
That's
if I can add to this, I used to leave here, now I do it on Zoom. I can't go anywhere. But people ask me all the time, well, what do I need to do to be a filmmaker? And I try to discourage them greatly. I try to tell them what you've heard me say before. Most films written are never begun. Most films begun are never finished. Most films finished are seen but for a second, boom, and they're gone. So one has to be willing, not with grace and gratuity, but to be committed like to an asylum to be a filmmaker today, because it takes that kind. You're going to go through a lot of hardship, but if you stay focused, there's a beautiful Sanskrit word called ekagrata, which means one pointedness. Let me show how we use that in Once Within a Time. Alfred Hitchcock says if you want to get the attention of the audience, just put a dot on the screen. And I realized, gee, how brilliant that is. So if you'll notice in Once Within a Time, there are all these circles like in comics from old, and a black dot in the middle of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
It's all over the film. That means a change in scene. Boom, 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 to get your attention, to focus you, because our attention span is very little.
That's a show, Godfrey. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to repeat to the um, young people that might be hearing this and the few old that are young, uh, rather be sorry than safe. And I wish you well. Thank you again, Jacques. Pleasure to be here.
Everybody, this was filmmaker, maestro Godfrey Reggio. You can see his latest film, Once Within a Time. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.